Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker has experience in going toe-to-toe against Michael Bloomberg. Bloomberg spent $20 million to pass an anti-gun referendum by just a few thousand votes. During that fight, our next speaker never flinched. He continued to work, and as of today, that anti-gun joke is still not the land of the law. Nevada's law-abiding gun owners have him to thank for protecting our rights. Please join me in welcoming a great champion of the Second Amendment, Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt.
All right, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I want to start with President Reagan's remark in the 1983 NRA convention. He said, "Those who seek to inflict harm are not fazed by gun control laws." That central theme has been used by the NRA and Second Amendment advocates for decades since. That has special meaning for me because Wayne LaPierre told me a few days ago that it was my grandfather, Senator Paul Laxalt, who personally asked President Reagan if he would come and be with the NRA and address them. And as you know, President Reagan's the last president to address the NRA until today, when President Trump came here and decided to walk with us, and we thank him for that. Isn't it nice to have a president that stands for the Second Amendment and is willing to come here and address the NRA and tell us that he's going to be with us for the next 8 years? Now, some people say that the NRA fights too hard, should let certain things go. But I would like to say that I commend the NRA for understanding the slippery slope. They understand that you have to fight for every single inch. And if you don't, what happens? It slides and slides, as we've seen in many other areas about what we care about in this country. I'd like to use Nevada as an example. 5 years ago, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you're a statewide elected official, you supported the Second Amendment. We were profoundly a pro-gun state. Just last year, as Chris just mentioned, Mayor Bloomberg came into the state to try to pass universal background checks, something 5 years ago we would have thought was unthinkable. Well, after tens of millions of dollars, with myself, the top law enforcement officer, and every elected sheriff in Nevada saying that this would not make the people safer and that it was poorly written, it passed by a few thousand votes. Now, just a few days ago, our Democrat majority Senate passed a bill that you really can only see in science fiction. How many people remember the Minority Report with Tom Cruise? There was a concept called pre-crime. So this bill starts with saying by the possession and ownership of a gun makes you high risk, if you can believe that. It goes on to say the government can take your Second Amendment right based merely on suspicion or a threat. That is where our state is headed. We expect our governor will veto that bill, as bad as it is, but it's terrifying to think that Nevada is only a veto away now from this kind of terrible gun law being passed in our state. Now, we must adhere to constitutional principles and understand why our Second Amendment exists. A government that denies its citizens the right to bear arms is a certain kind of government. It's a kind of government that does not trust its citizens. Our founders wrote the Bill of Rights precisely to protect us from that kind of government. They understood that our rights don't come from the government. We had our rights before we came together and decided to create this great constitutional republic we live in. Now, right there at the beginning of the Bill of Rights, alongside of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, is our Second Amendment. the right to keep and bear arms. And our founding fathers understood that was a founding fundamental principle that we needed to enshrine in our Bill of Rights. So why do we fight for issues that some say are not important and others say are extreme? Because ultimately, all of us in this room understand that we are always fighting for something even bigger, something more fundamental than the latest gun control proposal. We are fighting for the nature of our republic. Are we a nation in which the citizens grant power to the government, or are we a nation in which the government dictates rights to its citizens? The founding fathers were quite clear on this point. They trusted you more than they trusted the government. And I happen to share that view. Now, I can tell you attorneys general all across this country have been fighting for our rights, fighting for the Second Amendment over the last few years. Many called the attorney generals the last line of defense against the Obama administration. And we all followed the last few years as things kept coming outside of the Constitution, breaking our constitutional system, and the attorneys general were there to try to protect all of your rights and all of your liberties. But we couldn't do it alone. We needed a president. And why do we need a president? Because we needed to get our courts back. And the courts are crucial in this fight for our Second Amendment and our rights. We're so fortunate that the president delivered on his campaign promise to nominate a justice in the mold of the late, great Antonin Scalia. And thankfully, we now have Justice Neil Gorsuch. But we can't stop there. And we're excited to see President Trump continue to deliver on that promise to nominate Scalia-like judges across this country, the district court level and the circuit court level, and God willing, at the Supreme Court level. Now I want to close with another line from President Reagan in his 1983 speech. He said, "I've always felt a special bond with the members of the NRA. You live by Lincoln's words. Important principles may and must be inflexible." Well, I second that motion, and I commend the NRA for fighting for every square inch. Thank you. God bless America.